Hi, and welcome to the Handbag Designer 101 podcast with your host, Emily Blumenthal, handbag designer expert and handbag fairy godmother, where we cover everything about handbags from making, marketing, designing, and talking to handbag designers and industry experts about what it takes to make a successful handbag. Welcome, Lily Radu, to Handbag Designer 101, the podcast. We were just chatting before, and dangerously way too much information has transpired. So very excited to have you.
I'm so excited to be with you. Thank you so much. I can't wait for our little...
oh boy. We're going to unearth more stuff that you're going to be like, I can't believe I'm telling you this.
You told me already. I'm very curious what I'm going to tell you, which I haven't talked about before. So I'm very curious about it.
So let's get into this. So you are German, correct?
Yes, correct.
So within all the stuff that's been written about you, you were quite the early jet setter, which isn't so out of the norm for a European. It is for Americans, but to be a European and bounce around country to country, it's pretty normal.
Normal. What is normal, right?
I don't even know.
Do you agree? Because obviously in Europe, it's much easier, right? Because I lived in Italy, and Italy, Berlin is like an hour flight away. So obviously everything is so close in Europe, right? But I think it's also, I always had the interest to live abroad in different countries and whatever. And still today, that's where I get most of the inspiration from. I just love doing that, right? And that's why my husband and me, which we run the company together, right?
It's a whole other conversation.
The second handbag company that we run together, let's put it like this. We now, the last 3 years, lived in between Miami and Berlin, right? So it's always been to get the best out of each world.
I would pay money to see you guys with your kids getting off a plane in Miami being like, what did we just decide? Like, what?
To be honest, and that's what I love. You know, like I love a lot about Miami and the positivity and the weather and a little bit more flamingos in your life. Everything is a little bit more pink and whatever.
It's not German at all.
No, that's not German at all. And it gives a lot of energy and whatever. And then it's always super nice to come back to Berlin, where it's obviously a little bit more grounded, but also very like creative, right? It's a very creative city, very like super international creative. And to get like the best out of both worlds.
Yeah. Also, there's pretzel bread, and that does not exist in Miami.
So good. Can you imagine my kids when they're in the States? Because they have a pretzel every morning here.
That's as like they should. Listen, I have a good friend.
A little bit cliche, but it is like that.
No. Cliche works when it tastes good. I mean, I have a good friend from Stuttgart, and every time I would go to visit, it was like a melange of pretzel bread. And I'm like, I'm taking this all home with me. Like, I don't care if it's old or dry. It's coming with me. So let's talk Little Lily. So you were small at some point. Was this like, one day I'm going to grow up and be a designer? Or was this like, okay, hey, I've got a creative flair and I'm a little different and I can see myself doing things? Like, were you bold? What number child are you?
And I have just one sibling and I'm the smaller one. So we're just two. To be honest, like, I think I always knew I wanted to become an entrepreneur, right? I started selling things when I was 6 on the street, if it's lemonade or whatever. I always knew I can do sales.
Did they sell German lemonade? What were you selling?
I was selling lemonade and flowers.
What kind of flowers?
To be honest, the ones I picked, like my parents live next to a river and I just picked them randomly from the gardens, right? Or not gardens, like from the public.
Yeah.
And then just sold them, right? So I think there's something in me.
That's all profit.
It's all profit. It's all profit. No, but it's always, I love sales. To this point, and my husband and me did everything, every trade show and everything, right? To now have obviously a distributor. I still love sales. I love to sell to department stores or a wholesaler, whatever, but I also love to stand. And that's how the idea of VeeCollective actually started, right? I love to be on the sales floor, talk to people, to customers and get feedback to salespeople. I still love that. And I always told my husband, if I stop doing that, then a lot from the brand, or if we stop doing that, a lot from the brand is going to lose like the energy of it, right?
Do you know so many designers that I've dealt with? And I'm also a professor of entrepreneurship at FIT. And so many students of mine, and it's always one of these things that, oh, I'm just a designer. I'm this. I don't want to get in front of people because people are afraid. They're afraid for the feedback. They're afraid to hear things. They're afraid to hear anything negative. They just want to sit in a dark room and make things. And the reality is, to be successful, you need to be front and center. You need to hear the good, bad, and the ugly. You need to be there to hear, like, actually, this didn't work for me at all. Here's why. Also, and I hate going back to these stereotypes of saying it's not very German, but to be this chatty, like, hey, how's it going? Were you unique in that point growing up?
To be honest, yes, I think so, right?
Looking back, do you see like yourself?
Looking back, it all makes sense why it came that way, kind of, like it kind of makes sense. And I think I was like this already very early in my childhood, but then obviously living a lot abroad and like I learned a lot how to react or how to be with a lot of people, right? And that's also what I'm trying to, because we talked about it before. I have 2 little kids. Also, this living in between Berlin and Miami and everything, that's what I try to teach them, to be like, they're super open-minded to people, to nannies, to like whatever. For them,
whatever's thrown their way.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's a way, I also couldn't care less. Like, you can put me in any kind of wherever, and I'm going to figure out my own way. But I love people. I love how they react, I think that's one of my biggest talents, right? To really read people and to get into them and, like to mingle with them, to explore and to see.
Yeah. No, totally. So the first time you went to university, was that in Italy or was that in the second?
No, I did my first studies, which was more communication and economics in Vienna. So I on and off lived in Vienna for 6 years, right, in Austria. And then I was abroad. I lived for a year in Rome and everything. And then I had my first job.
Were you just like moving around? Like, oh, this would be fun. I could work here. I can live here. Like, just because you could?
That's an amazing thing about Europe with universities, right? Yep. You could change universities just for 1 year. So it's like an Erasmus. Program. So I did that with Rome. It's super easy in Europe. That's the beauty about Europe. That you can literally like live in Paris for 1 year and then live in London.
Right.
The university.
Well, not London anymore, but yeah.
London used to be, but not anymore. Exactly. And then I had my first job in Vienna, much more in communication and everything. And already there, I was very entrepreneurial, right? It was my first job, but I already like started a new little department in that communication agency. I always had this, I'm not going to do it like the way everybody's going to do it, right?
Yeah.
I figured out myself and I want to explore, right? I mean, that was always in me. And then I went to Italy to Bocconi and did a MBA in luxury and in design, right? Which there was the first step to actually writing a business plan and everything to found my first company, which was Lily Radu, right? Which is also handbags, but it was more contemporary leather handbags back in a time 14 years ago where that was a very growing category, right? Obviously that changed now and everything, but I'm so thankful for that journey. And there was the first. So I actually like started with a laptop bag, right? Because I was living in Milan. What you do in Milan when you go from university to aperitivo, which everybody does.
As you do.
You just live like that. I mean, that's my favorite part of the day. I was looking like to find a laptop bag that is out of leather in a contemporary price point, and there was nothing in the market. And that's what I wrote a business plan about. Obviously, when you start with a laptop bag, your dream is Apple. And then 1.5 years later, I was the first German to design for Apple a complete laptop collection, right? And that's how it all got started. That's how I got into bags. It was not like my dream or I'm going to be having now at this point already my second handbag company. And it just kind of came to me and it was ideas and it was something I was looking for in the market. And then from a laptop bag, it developed that department stores were like, yeah, but why don't you also do like wallets and bags? So I kind of got into that and learned all about it in a production where we produced our first bags in Istanbul. And I will always be very grateful because I've spent a lot of time in the production and I still to be honest, I miss that now because we're producing a lot of bags and obviously it's in Vietnam and I have little kids. So my husband does those travelings, the smell of leather, of a production. I mean,
yeah. The touch feel.
I loved it.
So questions. Why did you name it after yourself?
to be honest. Somebody told me it's really clever to do that because then nobody can sue you. It totally made sense for me, right? And
but the flip side is if you sell your brand and they destroy it, there goes your name.
Exactly. But I was never, to be honest, I never think like that, right? I always go to the positive side and I will work it out. So I never had that thought. And so much comes out of this, right? Because that brand now is in a beauty sleep, we kind of stopped that. But because of that brand, and we were selling that, blooming, the beauty sleep, right? Because we were selling that brand to Bloomingdale's, we were listening to customers and everybody was like, we're looking for a super lightweight bag. And that's how VeeCollective and how my husband looked at me. And it was in LA. I will never forget. It was like 2016. My husband looked at me and said, why don't we do a second brand? Because obviously leather is always heavy. So you will never create a lightweight bag. So yeah, VeeCollective was born.
So question, because you said you had your first partnership collaboration with Apple and you also wrote a business plan. And nowadays they teach, even I teach, that this old school method of a business plan and a 5-year plan and mapping it all out sometimes it's illogical in that you need to go to the market, you need to test, you need to iterate. So all the lovely stats you write out and all of the great broad ideas of plans sometimes go out the window by page 2 because you realize that whatever your first product was isn't what it will be next year.
100%. Couldn't agree more. I still think it's good to structure yourself, to just start with a 5-year plan, because absolutely, I didn't write that business plan.
I mean, you are German, so that makes sense. So
maybe. No, but nothing was whatever was written in that piece of paper, right? But it still got my mind about my goals and where I want to go,
Totally.
And I think that's a mindset that is so important. And then you need to be absolutely flexible and open-minded.
Right.
Go on that journey.
So how did it happen with Apple? Because that is, as we say, chutzpah.
A true story?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
These are the stories. I told that. I'm really sorry to tell you. I told that story before. So,
well, I'm going to get something else out of you.
Out of me, right?
Something else. Don't worry about that.
So in Berlin, there used to be this big trade show, and that was the first time, like in a very small box, I presented VeeCollective. I'm saying Lily Radu, right? And when you have that dream that one day you want to work with Apple, right? And then there's customers coming, and I always had this pitch for like 20 seconds about the brand. And then I always was very curious. Okay, like some people, when they sell a brand, they talk for 20 minutes and then they wait till the other person says, okay, I'm from Bloomingdale's. I never had that patience. So I kind of gave the pitch, the elevator pitch. And then I was like, oh, so nice to meet you. And where are you from, right? And then I remember this guy saying, I'm Tom. I really think his name was Tom. I'm Tom from Apple.
When I'm like, ding, 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 ding.
I was like, okay, Lily, you exactly have 20 seconds now to make the magic happen, right? And the first thing that came to me was, how can I be convenient for him, right? Because what is going to happen after this trade show, right? We're going to exchange emails. It's going to take forever. Nothing is going to happen. So I said, oh, it's so nice to meet you. And I can't believe I'm going to, because he said he was based in London. I was like, I'm going to London next week. So I can come to your headquarters and present in front of your team because I'm there anyhow, right?
Were you planning on going, or was that true?
Of course, that was not true.
Okay, good. See?
Totally made that up, right?
See, you didn't tell people that. I know that. So yeah.
So I totally made that up, right, with a lot of other things. And next week comes.
You work backwards.
I went to London. I presented in front of the whole thing. And I was the first German to do a laptop collection for Apple that was sold Europe-wide. And they opened a flagship store in Berlin.
So was it Lily Radu X Apple? How was it packaged?
It was Lily Radu X Apple. Exactly. It was the real collab thing. And obviously...
That was even before they called it collabs. Those were called partnerships.
Yeah, or like partnerships. But the crazy thing was, I was a one-woman show, right? And they kind of, obviously, it was Apple, right? I mean, it was me and Apple. So I had 20 emails, literally, that I made up that all ended with Lily Radu, right? With people that all came back to me. Yeah, I made myself bigger as a company, like pretend that there's employees, right? I mean, otherwise they would have been like, okay, you're one woman show, you want to produce for Apple now? No, that's not going to work.
Smoke buys mirrors. That's what we say. And, you know, we have a very interesting person who's coming up on the podcast called Richard Kestenbaum, who is in mergers and acquisitions. And I've presented him many brands for acquisition, and some of which are making grossing upwards of $1 million, over $1 million. And he, you know, one particular conversation, he had asked how many employees were there. And I said, oh, she's 1+, or they are 1+2, or he's like, no, it's not enough. They're not equipped to scale. They're not built to scale. They don't understand how to scale, because if it's still a one-woman show, it's great, because as a one-woman show, it's like, look, the costs are down. It's just me. I'm an easy person to take on. But to somebody else, it's like, okay, but they are not equipped to let go, to delegate, to understand that they can replicate what they're doing without them being there. And that's an interesting fact that not a lot of people take into consideration with growth. They're like, no, I need to be part of everything. And it's, no, you need to build this so someone else can handle and delegate. If you ever wanted to start a handbag line and didn't know where to start, this is for you.
Living proof that independent designers can make it big.
Emily Blumenthal is one prime example.
If you had dreams of becoming a handbag designer and didn't know where to start, this is for you. If you have a handbag brand and are in need of strategy and direction, this is for you. I'm Emily Blumenthal, handbag fairy godmother and handbag designer expert, and this is Handbag Designer 101, the masterclass. Over the next 10 classes, I will break down everything you need to know how to make, market, and manufacture a handbag. Broken down for you that you'll not only skip steps in that handbag building process, but also save money in that learning curve. For the past 20 years, I've been teaching at the top fashion universities in New York City, created the Handbag Awards, and also the Handbag Designer 101 podcast. I'm going to show you like I have countless brands, from sketch to sample to shelf, whether you're just starting out and don't know where to begin, or even if you have a handbag line and just need some strategic direction, the Handbag Designer 101 Masterclass is just for you. So let's get started, and you will be the creator of the next It Bag. Join me, Emily Blumenthal, with the Handbag Designer 101 Masterclass.
Absolutely. And that's right now the biggest process we are in right now, my husband and me.
It's not easy.
And to be honest, at one point, your job as a founder is obviously to drive this vision and to go and not stop, but to build people that in their subjects are much better than you, right? Yeah. In marketing, logistics, and whatever, because obviously 100%. Right? I mean, we're very good entrepreneurs, and obviously we're very good on product and everything, but we need to team up with the best people.
100%.
And that's a big part of growth, right? And it's also a big part of letting go, what you just said, right? We have we could never do that step to New York now if we wouldn't have a good team in place here in Germany, right? That is handling a lot of our stuff and everything for us to really focus on the American growth.
Do you remember the first employee you hired, and are they still with you?
Absolutely. I remember it was an intern. No, she's not with us anymore. She was with us, back Lily Radu times, she was with us, and Josefa was her name. 7 years, right? So she went like from intern, and then she
to supreme captain.
Supreme captain. But we do have a lot of people in our company now that really went from intern to marketing manager, from intern to product manager. Like, I think
you're much more equipped now to do that. I mean, when you start out, it's a learning curve, because sometimes with the people that work for you or work with you, you sometimes over empower them because you don't know what else to do, that you're afraid they'll leave. And then you're like, what am I going to do now? And it typically happens with female entrepreneurs. I have found this. I'm guilty of that as well, of taking someone on, and it's almost like you make them too powerful, but you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do if I don't have you. And then what happens?
Yeah. Then what happens? But to be honest, you also learn while you do that, right? My husband and me also learned that.
Was he always with you with Lily Radu?
No. So I started Lily Radu by myself, and then we started dating and everything. And then I figured out he's out of like background economics and was working in marketing. And I figured out that when you're alone, right, and you run your own company and somebody's so close to you and he was really interested, he started working for me as well, obviously.
By default.
Yeah. Because he did like press things, and he's really good in text and copy. He did all these kind of things. So for 1 year, besides his job, he was actually much more working for me than for his job, right?
Would you say to him working for you or with you?
But to be honest, then it was more working for me now, obviously, we've been working together for 10 years. It's really working with each other. Like there's like, it's crazy how things like this develop,
Isn't
right?
that
Because
wild?
we have like 2 kids. We have a company run together. We are like, but we figured out very early that if one can do something better than the other, he just needs to take care of it, right? And that's why right now we are both CEOs of the company, and we are totally running the companies. Like I do much more communication and sales and like handle all that. He's into finance and product. So it's really crazy. Obviously, we team up for very important decisions, but right now it's also, we don't have the time. We used to have the thing that we really like everything we decided together, like that was the starting. Now we don't decide anything together. If it's really one big decision, yes, you ask him. But there's a lot of things like when I do collab, sometimes he looks at me, he's like, oh, we're really doing a collab with them. Like it's so funny.
Yeah.
But it's just growing the business, right? I mean, yeah.
So I know Lily Radu is in a beauty sleep. Was that hard to make that decision?
Absolutely not. Because VeeCollective was already like going in the right direction.
What was the overlap of time that they were?
Overlap was around, it was like 3 years. We overlapped 3 years. So what we did is back then we still did trade shows. So we kind of showed, at the trade show, half of it Lily Radu and half of it VeeCollective. We were standing next to each other, and obviously leveraged also on contacts we had and all that. Even though it's completely produced differently. Lily Radu was leather bags out of Istanbul, and VeeCollective is nylon bags, and obviously this whole recycling and sustainable aspect that we have there, and we produce it in Vietnam.
So how did you come up with the name?
The second one, Lily Radu was gone, right? Because I already had a company there. My husband came up with it.
And you couldn't use your maiden name.
No, it was
your
over.
married name.
We're like, okay, let's create a, so to say, fantasy name, but there's something behind it, because obviously the collective is a lot what we stand for, because it is like a collective. What we say or what we're trying to do is to change the fashionable everyday handbag, right? So we're not in competition with any brand of handbags, because everybody needs still their small handbag. I mean, I see all the handbags on your book in the back, right?
Huh.
If it's leather, whatever it is, but everybody needs their, and I call it the Mary Poppins bag, your everyday bag to go to the gym, to go to work, where you have a laptop compartment, to go traveling. Your everyday bag that you fill your life in, that is super lightweight.
Yeah.
And nobody in that position, super fashion, right? So through our distribution, we're just next to Balenciaga and Celine and all these kind of bags, right? But everybody next to those bags still needs a bag to actually carry your stuff, right?
Yeah.
Which is crazy. And an amazing example that obviously we got inspired by was the most sold bag in the world is the Longchamp Pliage, right? Since 30 years, nothing has changed there, and it's still selling like crazy. Yeah. And I think it's an amazing success story and an amazing bag, but it's not modern anymore, right? I mean, if you think about it, what does a modern woman need? She needs a laptop case. She needs it, when it's raining and like all that. It needs to be completely sustainable, it needs to tick different boxes. And yet we want to be fashion, right? So we just work with fashion influencers, just sell to the best stores and everything. So positioning is key, but our bestseller is $295, right? So it's still like a different price positioning. And we're tapping in there, and we saw it in Europe, right? That there's nobody out there in that segment. And like stepping into the States now, we also see that it's such a unique positioning with the product that we really want to start a new category where we become those fashionable everyday bags everybody runs to, right? So that's the same when we gift, like we gifted it. That's how the Goop and Tracy Anderson collab started. It was really just gifting bags to them, and they really loved the product and started wearing it without paying or anything. And then the dynamic started out of that.
Right. It's so interesting, and I can't speak to the European market about bags like that, but within the States, there's definitely bags that fill that category. You wouldn't be the only one. So, Europe is a very, very, very different market. Even within each country, it's a different market. The States, although it is a uniform, I guess you could say, in language, and obviously you go state to state, it's still the United States, but culturally, like what sells in Miami is different than sells in Boston, than New York, than Chicago, than LA, than Dallas, and, and there are lightweight, everything carrying sustainable bags that exist. So I knew you were here already, but was that, and obviously a challenge is not something you would run away from. That's what you stand in the face. How are you able to look at that saying, okay, there may be people or brands within this category. How are we looking at this that we would stand out comparatively?
To be honest, it's absolutely positioning, right? Because you're right, there are bags like this, but it's the question how they position themselves, right? And the price point and everything. And we really position as fashion and in this wellness lifestyle segment. That's why we collab with Goop and with Tracy Anderson and with brands like this. And there it's a lot about who we stand next to, right? Because we feel that. And if you go through New York, right? And I did a lot of my research and all that, right? And I looked at a lot of bags, what people wear in their everyday bag, right? And if you look what they still wear to the gym and everything, a lot still wear their old 𝐀𝐬𝐬𝐫 bag, right? Which is an amazing bag, but they wear that. You can't even close that bag, right? Nope. And I love that bag. Don't get me wrong. I'm obsessed with bags in general, right? Or they wear a gifted aloe bag. This is basically what you see all over New York when people stuff their things. So obviously you see, and these are fashionable girls, right? That besides that have an amazing bag, right? But they don't really know where to fit all their belongings for the day, for the gym, to work and everything. So yes, but there is still a huge opportunity in that market. It's a little bit like Lululemon came with the leggings, right? I mean, they opened a complete new category where everybody obviously also like wearing it every day. You know, the States obviously much more advanced than in Europe because that lifestyle hasn't even come to Europe yet that much, right?
Well, so people still look nicer there, but yeah.
I mean, to be honest, I think what it is, like Europe is a lot about the fashion brands, right? The Yves Saint Laurents and the Christian Dior's and whatever. And America is a lot about product brands, Levi's and all these kind of products, right? That's why we also see, and we are a product that is positioned in a fashion surrounding, right? So we really feel very confident about the product in the States. And obviously you have first experience, right? Also with influencer, with fashion influencer, but also with department stores and stores.
Whose idea was it, just going back to, was it yours or your husband, to Lily Radu Beauty Sleep? Was it like, okay, it's enough, it's not like...
It was, to be honest, it was both of us. It was always, we were very direct, and I was never emotional about it. People ask me, but it's your name or whatever. I'm like, okay, but VeeCollective is also my company, right? I mean, right. There's just the opportunity, and I'm seeing the next opportunity. I was never emotional about it. And to be honest, just because, and that's reality, just because the knowledge, and we listened to the market, and we did Lily Radu, right? And we created that and learned so much. That's how VeeCollective started. And so for me, it's completely, without Lily Radu, there would have never been a VeeCollective, right? So right. I'm super grateful for everything. And I learned a lot about bags.
How did you end up with Vietnam?
To be honest, our sourcing team, they're ex-Adidas people, right? Also our creative director, he used to be 15 years the head of design of Y3. So we came, once we builded that and I had the idea of this tote, we kind of wanted to get, and we got into that sourcing. There's a lot of Adidas people that then did their own companies. And then we started with our sourcer. And it was really, we looked into what are the best productions with the best expertise on nylon, right? Because, I mean, that's another thing. And obviously, when we did leather, it was an amazing experience in Istanbul, right? But I mean, they don't have, we even tried to do some samples in Istanbul. It was horrible what came out.
Yeah. It's not what they do.
Exactly. So you have to see where the expertise lies. And we were super, super happy because the product, even though it's a nylon bag, right? And it's still a $300 nylon bag, right? I mean, with vegan leather. So it's not cheap in that sense, right? But there's so much expertise in that bag, right? And it's so like well thought through, organized and all that. It's an amazing product, which we try to make better every season. So we try to listen to the customer. You know, we got feedback, little examples, right? We always had a black lining inside, right? And customers come back to us and we're like, okay, I can't find anything anymore.
I always say the black lining, you know, black lining.
Yeah. So like you listen, right? And you change. Obviously it takes a season, but we try to do that and do the best. That's our aim, to do the best everyday fashion bag that exists in the world.
What are one of the takeaways with VeeCollective that you're like, if we had only done this instead? Were there any things that went wrong that you were like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened if we'd only done XYZ?
To be honest, I think as an entrepreneur, you have a lot of those moments, right? A lot of them.
Yeah.
I think it was the pandemic was a big learning, right? Because obviously...
Were you in Germany or Miami for that?
No, we were in Germany. We were in Germany for that time, and productions were blocked. So we were blocked for 10 weeks. No product came out of Vietnam, right? So for a short time, we needed to rethink and open the production also in China to be able to maneuver, like 2 different production facilities. Obviously, there's moments where you're like, okay, I could have thought about this. It would have been so easy and I wouldn't have had no product for 10 weeks or less product, right? Or so.
Yeah.
But then, that's also the learning, right? I tend to not to regret. I'm so much more into the future. I don't really look into the past that much and be like, okay, I really regret doing that. I'm much more, okay, what is the next opportunity? I think sometimes I run too fast, but it's just me. Like my husband looks at me sometimes and he's like, you're absolutely mad, right? You just run and never stop.
Yeah.
But I just love it. And we love what we do, right? It's a 24/7 job. We work together. We have kids together. We run the company. We moved to New York now. It's all in one pot. But it's super exciting and I love it. I love the journey.
This is some wild stuff, Lily. This is awesome. So in a perfect world, where do you see VeeCollective moving forward?
To be honest, in the perfect world, and I know it's going to happen because I manifest that.
I'm here for it.
Take over. I'm going to turn 43 this year. By 50.
Well, you look great.
Thank you very much. And by 50, which means another 7 years, right? I want this brand to be huge, right? And obviously in the States and Europe, but obviously also potential. We are growing very much also in Japan, to be huge and to have a lot of stores. So obviously the next
freestanding stores.
Freestanding stores, exactly, our own stores. So right now we have one own store, which is in Berlin, right? Which is our flagship store. Very soon we want to open a store. The next one should be in New York. So obviously these are dreams, right? Because then we have wholesale, we have direct to consumer set in place and our own stores. So I think that's a great combination for a product. But obviously, as you just said, the States is a pretty big country, right? It's not like you fly an hour to Milan, but you fly from New York to LA. 5 hours,
yeah,
right?
you fly an hour and then you're at Disney World. So it's very different. Disney is not Milan. So
Exactly. No, exactly. So, but this is something I love and how you explain it also, right? There's so many different customers in the States.
Yeah.
It's like a whole Europe or whatever, right? In one country.
Upside down.
There's Texas and LA, even just because obviously the most experience I have now is LA and New York, right? From collabs and customers and all that. It's crazy how different those two already are. Right?
Oh my God.
It's just completely different mindset, different use of the bags and everything. So I'm super curious and I can't wait because I'm going to be doing a lot of, we do always when we gift bags or we do events in the store, we do a lot of monogramming, right? So we do because on an everyday bag, you can put your initials and it's so cool. It makes it more special, your own everyday bag. So I'm going to be traveling through the whole United States, doing a lot of monogram events and a lot of sales trainings at all the department stores. And I can't wait to also explore a new country for me, right? I'm very excited about that.
Would you ever sell the brand?
Never say no, right? As I told you, I'm about opportunities. Yes. I don't say that I'm going to do it or we are going to do it. Obviously, it's my husband and me, but we're absolutely open-minded to that. Yes.
Lily, this has been enlightening. I'm going to go back and listen to every single little piece to see if it's been duped anywhere else to say that you said it with me and not with anybody else, because I'm sure there's got to be something, some nugget that I can say, we heard it here first. This has been amazing.
To be honest, what you have first is it's the first time I communicate that we're going to the States, to New York.
Well, good. But then you're going to just be here. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So that's big news.
FYI, the German consulate hosts events. So make sure you get in touch with their external PR team because they do a lot of events too.
Definitely.
FYI.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know how consulates work. I've been to a few of them in my day. This has been amazing beyond. How can people find you, follow you, get their hands on beautiful VeeCollective bags? To
be honest, we have our website, which is v-collective.com, right? And then you can also, and obviously our Instagram, and then you can also go on Lily Radu, as I also have my personal Instagram account where I share more founder stories and more behind the scenes stories of the brand.
So, and that's LILIRADU?
LILIRADU, exactly.
Right. And by the way, you wouldn't want to say minus, you'd say hyphen or dash.
Oh, yeah, exactly. See, these are the things I need to learn. Huh? You say that's so German to say minus, right?
Well, it's funny. My good friend from Stuttgart, she learned English in America, and what they teach English in Germany is British English. So she would get into trouble when, she'd say clean the apartment, and they'd say, no, it's tidy the flat. And there ain't no tidying of any flatting going on here. I can promise you that. So thank you so very much. I can't wait to see what comes next. And
I can't wait to meet you in New York.
Yeah, and we're absolutely going to do a follow-up once your feet on the ground running. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a good one. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to rate and review and follow us on every single platform at Handbag Designer. Thanks so much. See you next time.